Hi class, in this video I'm going to go over our midterm app pitch. So this is kind of a midterm, but obviously it's coming a little later in the semester. But it's really just a presentation to set up some basic ideas for what you want to do for the final project. So I'm going to go over that. This is going to be due next Wednesday, and that will be, so this assignment will be due on the 6th of May, in a week, and then the final project will be due on the 22nd. So you'll have a little over 2 weeks to finish your final project. If you've done all the assignments, you should be pretty close to done. You just have to kind of do some updates to the CSS and to the content based on your pitch. So we're pretty close to the end. We just have a couple of assignments left. So I'm just going to go over a quick example of how to create the presentation. I'm going to use Google Slides, but you're welcome to use PowerPoint or any other slide program that you prefer. So I'm just going to close out this video now and get started with the lecture. If you take a look at the schedule under midterm, these are all the requirements for the final project pitch. So I want you to create a concept for your web application. I'll go over a few examples based on the first assignment that we did this semester where we break down a website. And then make a Google presentation or a PowerPoint and include these options. So the name of the site that you want to make, a one-sentence description of what it does, the audience that you're looking to target, the problem that the app identifies, the solution that the app fills, and then some stuff about the design of the app. So I'm going to do a short demo where I cover all of those different components. I'm going to go over examples. So I'm just going to start by looking at a few examples. These are things that you guys presented at the beginning of the semester, just a selection. And I'm just going to go over how the examples kind of fit what we're going to be looking for. So I'm going to open up a tab here and just look at some examples, and we'll kind of think about how they fit in with what we're looking for the midterm. So you can see the first example I have on here is the Chinese social network site Weibo. I obviously can't really read this, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time here, but you can see some similarities between this site and the site that we've been working on. There's a login section over here. There are some posts right here. These are probably some like very highly trending posts or maybe relevant posts or something like that. And the posts also have images associated with them. So those are all things that we can do with our app. There's some other stuff here. You can see the date on the posts. You can see some social sharing metrics, which we haven't really done, but that's something that we could create if you're interested in creating that for your final project. So there's the number of times it's been shared, the number of comments, the number of likes. And then I assume this is the author, and then this is like the author photo or icon here. So a lot of that stuff we've already got working in our project. Some of the differences on this one are you can see some ads over here. You can see kind of a slideshow at the top here with some kind of like main content. And then there's a side menu here, which I actually don't know what any of this says, but it's probably like topics or categories or something like that. So those are all things that you could add into your final project if you are interested in those. Beyond that, I think Weibo is pretty similar to Twitter, so we'll look at Twitter as well in a moment. Another site that was presented was the Rockstar Games site. Most of this website is not a social network. It's just information and ads about this game company. But there is a social platform, so that's something that you could create as sort of like a demo if you wanted to. That might be a nice portfolio piece, is creating a social network around a video game or a movie or something else that you like, a TV show. That could be one approach. So I'm gonna sign up for this real quick. Okay, so now I'm in the social network part of Rockstar Games. And so you can see again, a lot of the stuff in here is pretty similar to what we have in our app. So one of the main sections on the site is this post section right here. That's also one of the main sections on our site. There's a menu up here. We don't really have that much stuff in our menu. And then there's content here. They have like a tiled layout. But you can see this is a post by the Rockstar Games user. There's just an image and then some text, and they have a social metric there as well. So pretty straightforward, pretty similar to what we have on our site as well. Just kind of a different layout, different colors. You can see the colors of this site match the colors of the theme of the game company itself. And they include stuff like the little star is part of their logo, so you can see that those colors and those different design schemes are used throughout the site. In terms of the typography, you can see the typography is very simple. It's just a pretty generic sans serif that they're using for pretty much everything here. And that kind of makes sense for a site like this that's not really a design-oriented site, but rather a social media-oriented site. So they're trying to highlight the content rather than the design of the site. League of Legends is another site that was presented. Pretty similar idea here. This is a video game website that also has a social network built into it. So I'm gonna try to create a account here. And you can kind of see just even the create account page is using sort of the design of the site. It's using font from the video game. It's using this kind of like, whoops, this logo from the video game. It's using this sort of dark background that matches the style of the video game. So I'm gonna try to sign up. Okay, so now I'm logged in. If I go to community, so I can see posts on the community board. I can see community posts. These are some comics related to the game. So if I actually played the game, I guess I would also have a match history here, which I don't have. So I think I'd have to do more on this site to really see the full features. So this site is a little bit more complicated, where it might be plugged into the video game to show some stats or your history of games. But you can see this is a good example of how the design is incorporated into everything going into the social media component as well. So let's keep going. So another website that was done is the BMCC Open Lab. We can see that here. So I'm logged into my account on the Open Lab. The Open Lab has a lot more content on it than we have on our site. You can see there is members. We have that with our users, but then there's courses, portfolios, communities, projects, calendar. There's a whole bunch of other stuff on here that we don't have on our site. But when we look at some of this content, like let's go to a course. I'll just choose a random course. You can see there's posts. So just like we have posts, there's recent posts here. And then there's some basic information about this, this course. We can also see members, and we can see information about the members. So here's my user profile. I have a user image, just like we have on our site. I have some basic information, some contact information, and then some of the projects and courses that I'm associated with. So there's a lot more information on the Open Lab site, but some of the basic information that we have is very similar, like editing the profile image and the profile fields. So let's keep going. So Instagram is obviously a very popular social network. You can see that it, again, looks pretty similar to what we have. There's a user image here. There's a main image here. So if you were doing a site that mostly focused on images, you could make this image very large and make everything else very small. In the images, we have some posts. So we see the author, we see when it was posted, and then there's some basic content related to the post. This tags some different people, so that we could do that with our tags feature. And then you can see some of these Instagram posts have multiple images. We don't really have the ability to do that, but if that's something you are interested in doing, we could work on a feature like that. But we basically see different posts by different authors and some basic information. So you could make a very similar site to Instagram just by highlighting the images in your layout and sort of making everything else a little bit smaller so that the images really take up the main part of the page. And then a couple of people also did Twitter. So Twitter is kind of like the main sort of template for what we've been creating. Obviously, writing a tweet is kind of the main thing that happens on Twitter. So here's where we do that. That's just like our publish post section. They have a bunch of stuff in terms of searching, trends, who to follow. So those are some added features that we don't have, but you could add in. And then each tweet, you can see there's actually, although the main part of the tweet is really the text, there's a lot of multimedia. So a lot of these tweets have images or multiple images or videos or other things going on. But you also see the date, the person who wrote the tweet, and then social media metrics. So all of these sites kind of have slightly different layouts, slightly different UI, and different components, but they have the same sort of basic content, which is users, text, and images in the posts. So those are some examples. I'm gonna do an example based on sort of a fake social media network that I could create that would be specifically for media arts and technology students. So that's what I'm gonna use as the basis for my presentation. So again, this is just an example presentation to get you started. Your presentation may, have different number of slides, different images, whatever you want to use to get your idea across is fine. So again, I'm going to use Google Slides for this. You're welcome to use another program like PowerPoint if you prefer. But since Google Slides is very easy to access, I'm just going to use that. And if you want to use our shared MMP 350 account, you're welcome to log in and create your slides there. So I'm going to open up an incognito window and go to Google Slides. So I'm just going to say Google Slides and click on here and go to Google Slides. And I'm going to log into our shared account. Feel free to use this one or use one of your own Google accounts. So that one is mmp.3.50 and the password is mmp350350. I'm just going to click confirm here. And so I'm just going to start a new presentation. So I'll just click blank here. And so here's a blank slide to start. I'm going to choose a theme. Feel free to choose whatever theme you want. It's nice to have a little bit of graphics to go along with your presentation just so it looks nice. So I'm going to find a theme that looks good. You can also create your own templates and use those, but I'm just going to use a theme for now. And I'm going to add a title. So this is my final project pitch. So I'm going to just write that, final project pitch. And I'll just say by Owen Roberts. Okay, so you can put your name in the first slide if you want. And then I'm going to go to insert and I'm going to insert a new slide. And so it has this sort of default look for me. Let's see. I can also duplicate a slide by going to, I'm going to delete this real quick. So I can also duplicate a slide by going to slide and duplicate slide. Control M is new slide. And it looks like there's really only a couple. Oh, here's my other layout. So if I want to use another layout, I can go in here and find, so like I could use something like this to change the layout. So that actually changed the layout of the slide I'm on. And I can also make transitions, but I'm not going to worry too much about this. So I'm just going to duplicate this slide. And so the first thing that we have to do, whoops. Okay, I'm going to duplicate the slide. So the first thing we have to do is have a name for our app. So we can replace that MMP 350 app. So I'll bring up my version of the app real quick just so we can take a look. And so right now I still have this default here that says MMP 350 site. We want to eventually replace that with our own name for the app. So that's the first thing. So what I'm going to be making is an app for MEA students. So I'm just going to call this MEA students. And that's it on this slide. So that's the title. You can put other information there if you want. And actually, I'm going to say for my app, what I'm going to do is a MEA course tracker. So this is basically allowing students to track their courses. So I'm just kind of using this as a basic example. It's not something that I'm actually planning to implement, but just as a kind of a concept for the pitch, I'm going to create an app where you can track which classes you've taken and which classes you have to take later. So I'm going to create a new slide, and I'll just do new slide here. And I'm going to create a different layout. So I'm going to go to maybe this layout. And so I want a one-sentence description of what this does. So actually, maybe I need a simpler layout. So I'll go to this one. So this website allows, or let's say helps, MEA students track their progress in their major. Okay, so something really simple. If you just want to make like a site for sharing your photos, you could say this is a website for people to share photos. If you want to make something for a video game, you could say this is a website where people can post information about their video games or post scores or something like that. Whatever it is you want people to do on the site, just give a very short description so people understand what it is very easily. Okay, so you might call this your elevator pitch or a one-sentence description. So I'm going to call this the elevator pitch. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So this one, I'm going to describe the audience. And so for my app, it's pretty simple. The audience is MEA students. Okay, so it can be as short as that. You could also, you could expand on that if you want to. So if you're making a site for a video game, you could say people who play the game League of Legends, or people who play the game Red Dead Redemption, or whatever it is you're making a site for, fans of a particular TV show or a particular movie or comic book, whatever it is your site is based around, you can say that's the audience. So that should be pretty simple. And so then the next slide is the problem. Okay, so this is one way that we can frame why we're creating the site, to explain to people who might be interested in using it, to kind of simplify what it is that the site does. So you can think about a lot of different websites in terms of their problem and solution. So like for Twitter, problem is you want to be able to write short tweets very quickly, so there's very fast exchange of information. And so the solution to that is just restricting the amount of characters in the tweet. For some other web services, the problem might be something like having a place where people who like a particular game or something like that can find other people to play the game with. So that might be a good way to organize fans of a particular game or another piece of media. So the problem for my website is MEA students need a simpler website for tracking their course progress. So basically we have a lot of different sites like DegreeWorks and CUNY First and stuff like that, and they are creating other solutions, but this would be one that was just focused on the major, so you would know which classes to take and which classes you've already taken. So there are things that exist for this, but I'm just kind of describing in theory what this would be. So then my next slide is the solution. Okay, so this is how my app answers this problem. So the MEA course tracker will add a simple interface for students to log their course progress and view courses they still have to take. Okay, so kind of similar to DegreeWorks or something like that, but this would be a simpler way of approaching it. And so that kind of also describes the type of information that you would be putting into the application. So now we get into the design. So we've kind of described the type of content we're going to see in the application. And so now we'll look at the design. So there's 3 components based on the components that we've covered this semester: the color scheme, site layout, and typographic hierarchy. So you don't have to do these in order. You can do them whichever order you prefer. And there's a couple ways you could go about this. One is you could use screenshots of your application to describe how it's going to look, or you could just use examples of typography or other things like that in the slideshow. So either approach is fine. If you have your site looking the way you want it to look already, you can just use screenshots of the site. If you have other ideas that you haven't implemented yet, you can just do that. So for the color scheme, I'm not really done with my color scheme. It's pretty basic. So I'm going to just describe what the color scheme would be in my slideshow. So I'm going to go to a new slide, and I'm just going to use some basic shapes and text to describe what this is. So I'm going to make a more blank slide, and I'm going to add some shapes. So I'll add a rectangle, and I'll just give this a color. And so what I'll say is, I could open up color.adobe.com and just come up with a color scheme as a kind of basic description. And so since I'm doing something for BMCC, I could use the BMCC color scheme, which I know is a complementary color scheme because we have the blue and the orange. And so I could find one that I like, or one that's close to BMCC, and then just use some colors here. So maybe I'll use this as my main color. So I'll just copy that, and over here, I can fill it in with a custom color and hit OK. And so I have my main color, and now I just need some text to explain that that's what it is. So I'm going to say main color is BMCC blue. So that's one color. And so then I'll just add another shape down here and grab maybe this other orange color over here and say, here's another custom color. And I'll say the accent color is BMCC orange. Okay, so we're just getting our main colors. And then if I want to add any other colors, I could say, for my text, maybe, or my links or something like that, maybe I would use one of these colors. So I'll just copy that. And for this one, maybe I would use the text just to describe it. So I could say like link color, and I could change that text color by just going to the fill and adding in a custom color here. Well, that's the background. Okay, let's try, here we go. So I'll do the link color, and maybe I'll underline it just to show that it's a link. So you could add a few examples of the different colors that you want to use in here. And so let's actually move all this stuff down a little bit, and let's just put a title up here. So maybe I can actually now apply a layout with a title. Okay, and I'll just say color scheme. And we have to show what color scheme it is, so it's a complementary color scheme. And so that's everything we need for that. I can get rid of this box. We don't need that. So I just hit delete to get rid of that one. So that's the color scheme. You can design it in Google Slides, or you can also just go in here and take a screenshot. So for our layout, which is our next part, I'm going to make a new slide. And for this one, I'll just say layout. And so for this one, I'll use a screenshot. So instead of just trying to create a layout here, I'll take a screenshot of my app. So I'll take the app out here. I'll try to get it to a nice size. And I'm just going to go to Command-Shift-4 and then hit space to take a shot of the window, and then click to take that shot. And that will put a screenshot on my desktop. You can also see it right down here. So then I'll open up the Finder and go to the desktop and find that screenshot. So it's right down here. And I can just drag that screenshot directly onto my layout. And I might want to make it big enough to see, so I'll just drag this out like this to fit the window. And if I want to add some description in here, I can add a new text box and say, this is a 2-column layout, main content on the left, and publish post box on the right, just to kind of give a quick description of what the layout looks like. And if you want to add a couple screenshots to show different components of the site, feel free to add as many slides in there as you want. And then finally, we have our typographic hierarchy. So this is one that would be easy to do just directly in Google. So I'm going to make a new slide and say typographic hierarchy. And in the presentation, you can use, whoops, I spelled this wrong. So you can actually use our typography here. So I would make a new text box and I would say something like headers. Okay, and then I would just design the typography. So I can increase this, and then I can drop down here, and then I can actually choose all of the Google fonts. And so I could look up the font that I'm using for my site. So let me go back to that site real quick. So I forgot what typography I'm using for this, but I can look it up really quickly by going to style.css. And I think I'm using, okay, actually I don't remember which one of those. So I should have deleted the typography that I'm not using, but I didn't do that yet. So let's just take a look. So I'm using the font family is Klam. So that means I'm using Klam and Tomorrow. So in Google Slides, I can go and find those fonts. So I'll go to More Fonts and search Klam. Okay, so there's Klam. Okay, so that's good. So that's my headers. Okay, and then I'll make a new typography and I'll say post content. Try to spell everything correctly. And so then for that one, I'm using Tomorrow. So I'll go here, go to More Fonts, go to Tomorrow. So that's one advantage of using Google Slides, is that the font's already built into it for us. So for my post content, I'm using Tomorrow. I can try to line these up a little bit better. And maybe I'll make the headers a little bit bigger. And that's pretty much all of the fonts that I'm using. But if you want to add some more link styles and things like that, you can do that. So with the typography, we can also show what font it is. So for this one, it's Klam. And for our post content, it's Tomorrow. And so we can give just a basic idea of what our typographic hierarchy is. So those are all the components of the presentation. So you can spend a little bit of time thinking about what it is you want your app to do, and then just come up with a name, come up with your basic pitch and the audience that you're targeting, the problem that your app is working with, and the solution that you identify, and then your three basic design components: the color scheme, the layout, and the typographic hierarchy. So it should be pretty straightforward. It should be easy to finish this in the next week, but if you have any questions or need help with anything, just let me know and we can go over it. Once you're done with the presentation, you can submit it as a link if you're using Google Slides. So you can just name the presentation. I'll name it Final Project Pitch, that's fine. And then you can share it by clicking on the share button. So you can get a link here, and you can just copy that link, and that's what you can submit on Blackboard. If you're using PowerPoint or an Apple product or something like that, you could make a PDF and then just submit the file via Blackboard. If you do have any issues with that, just let me know and we can go over it. That's another way that you can submit if you're not using Google Slides. But using Google Slides will definitely simplify this assignment. So that's basically everything for this assignment. The next assignment we're going to work on is just finishing up the final project. So just implementing your pitch into the code that we have. So make sure to look at the rubrics and assignment descriptions for both of those before turning them in. And if you have any questions on any of that, just let me know and we can go over it.